are to Matthew's Gospel. We've been slowly making our way through this. And in chapter 25, there is this section. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one with the 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful, trustworthy servant. I will put you in charge of many things. Just lost my place. Charge of many things, just like the first one. Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been worthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master replied, You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10 talents. For to all those who have more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him out into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Let us pray. We thank you, God, for our mothers and fathers in faith, for the stories they have told us and the heritage they have passed down to us. Now may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you. Amen. Amen. When I was thinking about the sermon for today and everything that's going on in the world, I thought that this sermon might be called, Are We Being Punished? Because it sure seems like that in a lot of ways. We started out in September thinking that it was going pretty good in the world right now, all things considered. There was still an issue with Ukraine, but otherwise it wasn't so bad. And then, not long after that, there was a terrible explosion of gunfire and deadly weapons that rained on Israel and killed so many people. And of course, the Israeli people responded because they wanted to make sure that those folks who had decided to take over in the whatever part they had, that they had to be stopped immediately and without mercy. And they decided that they would do everything they could to make the life of the insurrectionists terrible. And in the meantime, they would know that there were many people within those groups who had done nothing wrong and who were just trying to survive from day to day in a world that did not treat them very well. Of course, the world did not treat the people who were living in Jerusalem very well either. The anti-Semitism has only gotten worse in our country and in other countries around the world. And the people who are living in Israel remember all too well their parents or grandparents or great-grandparents who died in the Holocaust. And they want to make sure that they will not be the generation that lets that happen again. And it all makes sense in a way, but it's so terrible to watch. And it feels like we must have done something really wrong to have to watch this unfold. And we're not even the ones that are getting hurt. Not directly anyway. But when you see the children especially, and you hear about the babies whose only problem is they came a little early, and we know that it's going to take a long, long time for those memories to go away. Now, last week, I talked about some of the Christmas movies that are very popular or have been very popular in times in our part of the world. And I picked that topic in part because we are getting close to Christmas, because, 4 weeks of Advent and then Christmas. Christmas lasts for 12 days. This is something we forget. And the Christmas season doesn't end until those 12 days are over. So you could leave your Christmas tree up for a little bit longer than you were planning to. We also know that Christmas has become such a huge holiday in our country and in many other countries, but I don't know if anybody does it the same way that we do it here. It is very secular in so many ways, and a little bit religious in a couple of ways. And oftentimes, these days, there's this terrible feeling that if we could only say Merry Christmas to everybody, the world would be a better place. Instead of trying to do what we can to make the Christmas message work for all of the people out there that are so much in need. So I was thinking again about my wonderful book, Christmas on the Screen, Reviewing the Evolution of American Spirituality. Now, I don't know if it covers all of American spirituality. I tried to find something that said that, but it doesn't show up in the back, So anyway, last week we talked a little bit about the movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And it's a movie where this poor soul wants so much to be able to go off into the world, to learn about what's, to go to college and learn so much, and to visit places all around the world, and to have different kinds of food and all of those things. And instead, he was destined to stay in his little town and make the lives of all the people in that little town much better. Because he knew their problems, he knew their names, he cared about them. He didn't want to care, but he cared anyway. This week, I wanted to talk about the miracle on 34th Street, or 34th Avenue, I don't know which it is. And that is another one of the Christmas movies, pretty well known, and it is one that the author of the book reminds us of so much of what we would want Christmas to be. So we have this little girl who is very, very smart. That's quite obvious. But her mother is convinced that she must always know exactly what is and what isn't, and what kinds of things are true and what are not. Kind of reminded me when I was taking notes. When I was at the churches in Litchfield, we would have vacation Bible school. And I hate vacation Bible school because it's, I don't know, it's just not, there's not much to it. They make some nice little things and they, get some treats, and that's all fine. I favor that, and kids come down there and their parents get rid of them for a couple of hours, and that's fine too. We had 3 churches that would get together, the UCC church, our Lutheran church, and the Catholic church. So we, take turns in who got to do it. But one year, when we were doing this, there's one boy who went to our church, and we were talking about Lazarus and being, Jesus came along and took him out of the, wherever he was, down with the, just like Jesus, when Jesus dies and they put him in a cell that's part of a rocky place, and then they put a big rock in front of it, and Lazarus is brought back to life. And he says, this little kid, after we had finished and most of the other kids had gone, he must have been like 6 or 7. And he said, did that really happen? And I said, well, what am I going to do now? He says, because it kind of sounds like a myth to me. And I was like, wow, where did you learn about that? And what I really wanted to say was, yeah, but it was a myth with of a story that's bringing something into the world that wasn't there before. But I wasn't that clever. So I said, well, yes. So I lied to him. Yeah. It's terrible, isn't it? But this woman is kind of along those lines, although the things that she keeps from her daughter, I put in a little different section than biblical stories, but they're really not that big of a difference. She won't let her, she doesn't teach her daughter any ways of playing. She doesn't let her do, she lets her do things, but only when she knows exactly what's going on and how it's going on. And of course, that runs into a problem with Santa Claus, who is also in this movie and seems to be an old man who should have been off in the nursing home where he came from. But instead, he's wandering around the streets telling everybody that he is Santa Claus. And he gets into kind of a problem with this little girl who he finds just delightful. And he teaches her how to do things like pretend you're an animal, something her mother would never do. And when she's finding out how much fun the world can be, she wants so much to make it keep going. And her mother somehow is getting a little bit of this message that there is a time for play, and there is a time for children, and maybe there's even time for a man dressed up in a red suit with a big belly and presents to give out. And so she asks him for a house. She knows exactly what kind of house she wants and what kind of backyard it's going to have and all of that. And this really is a difficulty because Santa Claus, he can do toys, but he's not really equipped to do houses. And part of the way that makes this such wonderful story is what Santa Claus does do as he takes these little kids up on his lap day in and day out at Macy's in New York. When the children ask him for something that he knows they don't have at Macy's, or maybe it's very expensive, he'll tell the parents, you know, you could get this over at that store for quite a bit less, and I know you've got the inventory. And, you know, the owner or head guy at Macy's is just fit to be tied when he learns this. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, all of these people who have been helped so well by Santa Claus are seeing that or putting that as if it was Macy's idea. And they send him letters and say, I will shop at Macy's all the time because that Santa Claus was so helpful and told me where I could get this and that and the other thing. And he begins to think, oh, this could be a marketing strategy. You know, we're going to give up a few presents that we're trying to steer them to, but we're going to get a lot more because they have learned that Macy's cares about them. It's kind of, you know, the point of the whole movie, that you're cared for and it is a good place to be. And it makes you feel like, well, Christmas is a really good thing. But not everybody's Christmas ends like that. I mean, he even delivers on the house and the end. That you can watch the movie and see how that happens. Spoiler alert. Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah. Hey, this movie's been around for. You've never seen it? You don't know how it ends. You know it hasn't ended, but there's still a lot to happen. Yeah. But one of the things that makes these Christmas movies work is that somebody is on the outside or in need of something really important, and they cannot get it on their own. And so someone has to help them. And if they want to call that someone Santa Claus, more power to them. And if you want to call that someone by some other name, that would be fine too. But being Christians, and I tried to find too, where did Santa Claus come along? It was mostly a European thing, but why anybody ever, well, technically, yeah, it's a Christian thing. It's kind of gotten out of hand. But the issue is that people want to know that they're special, that there's something that's important, that they are important, and that there's still plenty of life left in the world, regardless of what's happened in your life up till now. And that's why the writer of this book, who says that we would probably not have Christmas movies of the kind we have if it weren't for the Christmas Carol, which came about, where's my little cheat sheet here? Yeah. He says, A Christmas Carol created a moral and spiritual context to Christmas in popular culture. Dickens transformed the holiday by giving it a supernatural element, combining religious mysticism through Christian references and images, but also incorporating ghosts from popular folk tales. What makes it the most influential movie in the Christian movie genre, however, is its portrayal of Scrooge, who is redeemed through a supernatural experience. At the time of its release, readers didn't view the story as Scrooge centered. For Victorian audiences, the center of the story was the ghost of Christmas present and the struggling Cratchit family. But over time, A Christmas Carol became Ebenezer Scrooge's story. The name Scrooge became synonymous with an antisocial individual who shunned Christmas. Some films adapted A Christmas Carol, even retired the main character. Scrooge's convention experience influenced the Christmas movie by establishing the pattern of protagonists in Christian films. Now that sounds like, yeah, I guess I kind of like a lot of talking because he was probably doing this for his, needed a grade. But as you think about it, it really, at least for me, reminds me that Christmas, as much as we moan about how it's so, it isn't really meaningful anymore, and the presents have gotten way out of control. And what are you going to get anybody anyway? Because everything they want, they've already gotten off eBay, or not, Amazon, thank you. I swear, my daughter and son-in-law are living with me with their daughter, son, who's almost a year old now. And we must get a package from Amazon once or twice a week. And my daughter is going over to Target to pick up, something that she's called in several times a week. I mean, what in the world? How can you be constantly buying stuff? But whatever, if it makes their life better. But it's not about the presents. It's about loving someone. It's about caring that someone actually exists. And it comes up in so many of the Christmas movies. There's a whole bunch in a list in the back here. And many of them I've seen. And it helps us remember that, we're supposed to remember that it's Jesus' birthday, but of course Jesus was probably born in August based on what was going on around him at that time. And they certainly didn't have a store to go into and buy little presents. But whatever, we have adopted it and adapted it so that it fits in our world. And we're thankful for that. And we're also thankful, I think, that there are people who love us and who will spend hours trying to figure out of something they don't have that you could get them in order to show them that you cared. And then maybe you come up with something that they'd never think of. I'm going to make the cookies Mom used to make, and I'm going to send you or take to you some of these cookies. and I'm gonna have them, they're gonna taste just like the ones we got from Grandma and from Mom. Now that would be a Christmas present, and it would make us feel just as good as the people who are receiving it. And it might be the sort of thing that changes the way we look at the world, and that would indeed be a wonderful thing. Now, we're getting ready for Advent to start, and it's kind of a gloomy time, both weather-wise usually, and also in the scriptures. And then we get to the birth, and as we go through all that, I think that there are plenty of opportunities that we're going to have to show people that when they're being jostled by a bunch of people in a line, that we will notice them and that they will know they're real people and their position, what they're doing, all of those things are just as important as that rich guy around the corner. And I'm looking forward to Christmas this year. Because I got a really good idea for So we'll see how it goes. But let's move back into our